Hi, and welcome to the Shadows and Secrets Deep Dive series. I'm Kerry Savage.
And I am Samantha Skal, and together we are Shadows and Secrets, a series of retreats in an online community for mystery, thriller, and horror authors.
Find out more at shadowsandsecrets.com.
Oh, we actually nailed the website that
We
time.
did it!
Oh, by the
Yay!
way, new website, shadowsandsecrets.com instead of the incredibly long one we had before. So that's very exciting.
Yes, it is.
Alrighty, so we are both book coaches and authors, and we love talking story. This is our series of huge spoiler alert deep dives into scary books we love, where we talk about twists and structure and masterful misdirection, villains, and anything else that strikes our fancy about MTS, which is the overarching genre term for mystery, thriller, and suspense. But first, I would like to introduce my co-founder of Shadows and Secrets, Carrie.
Hello, everyone. I'm Carrie. We've said, I'm a writer. I'm a certified book coach, and I love working with writers to make their fictional ideas really come to life. I am super into immersive settings, so that's something that I talk about a lot on these deep dives, and I really love details that pull you into a book's world. And now tell the people a little bit more about who you are, Sam.
Oh, I sure would love to. So I love working with thriller, mystery, and suspense authors to plan and write twisty novels, and my superpower is twist brainstorming. I just adore spending as many hours as possible every day doing that. It's a blast.
This is true, and it's awesome. So remember, as Sam said, we are going to be giving away everything, including some key plot points and twists here. So if you haven't read today's book, hit pause, go read it, and then come back and join us.
Indeed. So seriously, there's going to be no secrets unturned. So consider this your final spoiler alert warning. The structure of these talks is the same every time. We're going to read the book jacket copy and what the author has done to manipulate us before we even start.
And then we'll read the first page and talk about what the author has done to manipulate us there.
Indeed. And then we're going to break down each of the major twists in terms of how the author did it, what percentage of the way through it happened, and what on-screen clues existed so that their twists landed.
And so then finally, we're going to talk about how the author accomplished the overall misdirection and manipulation of the reader, and the way author used language or setting or other elements to set up the reader for maximum fear.
Excellent, which is why we love to read scary stuff. We like to be scared by fiction.
Hell yes. All right, are we ready to do it?
We sure are. So today's book is Only If You're Lucky by Stacy Willingham. Big fan of Stacy's. Hi, Stacy, if you ever see this.
Yes.
We just absolutely adored this. It brought me right back to college. I think she and I might be of an age because all the references were very much right there and made me feel like I was directly back at university. So that was really fun. Okie
Mostly
doke.
fun. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's a murder. So, like, you know, take
I
that for
did
what
have
you
those
will.
moments of girlhood adolescence that I really felt like, oh my God, she's nailing this. And I was like, oh, I really don't miss this either. So
Totally,
we will
totally.
totally talk more about that for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
for the males in our audience may not make as much sense, but just trust us that it was a certain time and a place, and Stacy very much absolutely took me right back. So
yep,
I
for
am
sure.
going to read the book jacket copy, and then
Great.
Carrie will do the first page. So. Lucy Sharp is larger than life, magnetic and addictive, bold and dangerous, especially for Margot, who meets Lucy at the end of their freshman year at a liberal arts college in South Carolina. Margot is the shy one, the careful one, always the sidekick and never the center of attention. But when Lucy singles her out at the end of the year, a year Margot spent studying and playing it safe, and asks her to room together, something in Margot can't say no, something daring or starved or maybe even envious. And so Margot finds herself living in an off-campus house with three other girls, Lucy the ringleader, Sloane the sarcastic one, and Nicole the nice one, the three of them opposites but also deeply intertwined. It's a year that finds Margot finally coming out of the shell she's been in since the end of high school when her best friend Eliza died 3 weeks after graduation. Margot and Lucy have become the closest of friends, but by the middle of their sophomore year, one of the fraternity boys from the house next door has been brutally murdered, and Lucy is missing without a trace. And then it goes on with some editorialization about what the story is about. But yes, so we are set up for quite a bit there to understand who these people are and what their motivations might be. And so when you read this, Carrie, did you have a sense of like who the villain was right off the bat?
Well, yes, I think they're setting Lucy up to be the villain, of course. Not
Yeah,
which you also then know because this is a thriller and you're being misdirected. That is probably not Lucy at the same time, right? But
totally.
they're setting Lucy up to be the power broker, the sort of the dynamic, kingpin, for lack of a better term, that around which everything is going to revolve. And that definitely holds true, I think. I don't think that there's any way that you could argue that they set up the final twist. I mean, of course they are doing that, but like, would I have ever guessed the final twist from that back jacket copy? Absolutely not. We won't spoil it.
No, not at all. And in retrospect, now that I'm reading it, like the clues are there, like we have Sloane and Nicole as
Hmm.
the two other main characters. And so you know that one of these people is going to have done something terrible. And so my brain immediately goes to like, which one is it? We're meant to think it's Lucy, and we're
Yes.
meant to maybe think it's even Margot, but also that's very difficult to pull off with the kind of like she's our protagonist, and so she's going to be keeping a lot of secrets, and she does keep a lot of secrets, but not the one that we think she might be keeping, which I think is really interesting. Like
Yeah, and I think
the
there's
actual secret that when it's revealed is I gasped out loud.
I was like, oh, damn, I did not see that coming.
Yes.
I feel like, we read enough of these that, I mean, I'm still not good at guessing, which I think speaks to the skill of the writers that we're reading, of course, too.
Yeah.
But also, I think I like to think I would be getting better at it, but I think also these writers are just really, really good. And that
Yeah.
is something that I feel like all along the way in this book, there was a lot of things that you look back on it and you go, oh, now I see completely how she set that up. But at the time, the misdirection was so tight and so seamless that it just worked. It was so smart, I felt like.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Stacy Willing.
lots to talk about.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Stacey Willingham does such an excellent job of building these twisty, tightly plotted
Mhm.
novels, And one of my one of my favorite things selfishly about her books is she hits the twist percentages like exactly. It's like exactly 50%. There's a midpoint turn. And as I was rereading this to go back through, you can see I have all these little like things
Mhm.
going back. It was like, it was making me be like, ooh, that's so nice. It's 55% and 85% and 98% and whatever it is. And it just, yeah, chef's kiss. It's
I
awesome.
know. I of course pay a lot of attention to that now too. And I was just like, now I'll read it and I go along and I hit one and I write the percentage down. I'm like, oh, Sam's gonna be so happy.
Yeah, it brings me great joy, just great
Indeed.
joy. And that's not to
Indeed.
say that, when you're writing, it needs to be exactly 50%. It just, when it happens in a book, it's a particular level of joy for me. So do you want to read? So there's a couple different things in this one. This one has a prologue, a true prologue, and then there's the
Mhm.
first chapter. And I think that the prologue is actually where I would like to start.
I
I think
agree. I was going to say, I think the prologue is where we should start.
Yeah. And
Um,
we don't have time to read the entire thing, but I think if you read the first page and then maybe like the last paragraph.
okay, I'm going to read so I read this on my Kindle, but I will read what is about the first page. I have a place where I know I'm going to stop because I think
Okay.
it's the right stopping point. And then I'm happy to read the last paragraph too. So,
Okay.
all right. One day we were strangers, and the next we were friends. That's usually how it works with girls. How effortlessly we glide from cold shoulders in public to applying each other's lipstick in sweaty bar bathrooms, fingertips touching in the swarm of warm bodies. From spreading hot-breathed rumors behind cupped hands to tossing compliments across the room like darts, aiming for a bullseye, but really just hoping for something to stick. I remember thinking she chose me, specifically, for some reason I'd never understand. Like she spotted me from across the hall, eyes on the carpet and shoulders hunched high as I tried to hide my underwear at the bottom of the laundry basket. Flowers and stars and little pink pinstripes, embarrassingly high school. And decided I was it. It was me, her best friend. And from that moment on, I was. Spin it, Lucy says, and I feel myself blink. My eyelids are heavy, the room twirling gently like our old dorm washing machines, slow and clunky and always broken. There's a permanent cloud of smoke in the house, cigarette, candle, incense, weed, caked into the blankets, the couch cushions. Like if you slapped them, they'd cough. Love that line.
That's so good.
I can still picture all my mom's country clubbers tucking my hair behind my ear, fingers lingering against my cheek like I was their own personal porcelain doll, thinking me delicate, breakable, as I loaded boxes into the trunk while they gushed about their own time at school with distant smiles and tears in their eyes. How sure they were that I would finally find my people, my girls. Just you wait, they had said, strings of pearls wound tight around their necks like designer nooses, my own mother watching curiously from the lawn. College is different. They'll be your friends for life. So I'll stop there.
Yeah. So unpacking, I mean, you, with your love of getting into the setting and the immersive world, like the language that she chooses here is so evocative and just like brings, like, just like sucks you in, right? Like you can, all these like hot breathed secrets. And I mean, there's so much
The
designer
pearls like
nooses.
nooses.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, this is so good. I've read this book twice now, of course, and I stopped over that and I wrote it down both times because I just really thought it was just so smart. The contrast, and then also, but we have talked about this before, this kind of language, especially in the first few pages of your book, are just, it's so evocative, and it also is such a signal to the reader of like, here's what you've gotten yourself into.
Yeah.
Of course, you know you've picked up a thriller, so you're not necessarily surprised by it. But at the same time, I think it speaks to the skill of the author to say, like, hey, just so you know, like, you're coming on this ride with me now. And this is the world that I'm building for you. And that's how it's done. And it's done very, very skillfully. So,
Yeah, completely agree. And I think that what she does in this prologue is make it so, so clear how intimate this is going to be. Like it's an intimate story with intimate relationships, not sexually intimate, especially, but just really close. And I think that that's the thing that made me so nostalgic for college was like, living with a big group of women is a time I've never done that since, I'll never do that
mm.
again. It's incredible. And I think you know, for me, the nostalgia brought me back, but also secrets and bar bathrooms and like, I'm just describing my college experience now, but it just like, um, it's just so skillfully done. Like the words she chooses are not they're not random, right? Like this
No,
is meant to evoke a
no.
very particular uh kind of feeling in the reader where you're like being sucked into these secrets and you're a part of this clique now. Like there's
Mhm.
no filter between us and what's going on, which I think is very skillfully done.
Yeah, and also evokes along the way too is there's like the freedom and sort of the wildness that you sort of feel that first time that you're truly independent. I think, you're off on your
Yeah.
own, you're making your own decisions, and like the joy and sort of the also the uncertainty that can come from that. And
Yeah.
then it slowly, and she does this really well, is it just goes more and more off kilter, and then the freedom becomes really like her world gets very big, and then it gets smaller and smaller and smaller and like it's a noose that's tightening again, to borrow from the
Yeah.
pearls. It really, it gets claustrophobic and upsetting, and she's a number of references along the way to things feeling off kilter or not quite right, and like the mood just gets darker and darker, so it's great.
So, so well said. Do you want to do like from They Were Right, those women, just those last couple lines, and then let's talk about prologues in general, because I think this one
Yeah.
does its job.
Yeah, so they were right, those women. College friends are different. We would do anything for each other. Anything. Dun dun
Okay.
dun.
Yeah. So like so intense, right? And the clues are all there about how far this is going to go. And because it's a thriller, you're like, okay, someone's going to murder somebody else. So that's no big secret that that's what's going to happen. So it's no surprise when we get there. But I think that the suspense that builds up from just we would do anything for each other, anything, as you lead into this story, because the first little bit kind of like nothing murdery happens. There's
It
not really
really,
any big drama until like 35% in, I think is when I clocked it.
yeah, I was going to say the first half of this to me felt a little bit, and I don't say this as a knock, but it was a little bit of a slow burn because
Yeah.
she's really establishing the relationships and how tight that gets. I mean, we're sort of setting Margot adrift, and then showing Lucy pulling her in, and all of those reasons that Margot is vulnerable to all of that. But the other thing that we skipped over in the prologue, which I think is I don't know, super important, but it's nice because
Yeah.
she does come full circle to it in the end, is when you actually go in scene, it's Lucy and Sloane and Nicole and Margot sitting at the house playing like their version of spin the bottle. Only it's spin the knife. It's spin the massive chef's knife from the kitchen. And there's like a moment where she like sees her reflection in the steel of the knife, and her face is distorted. And I mean, it's just it comes full circle, this little game that they play, which also they do truth. So you spin the knife, it lands on you. It's truth or dare, and it comes back numerous times throughout, which I also thought was really nice sort of device for setting up all the things that she sets up.
Totally, totally. Yeah. So in terms of a prologue, I think if you're deciding whether or not to put a prologue in a book, this one does a really good job, and it's a little bit unclassic in the way that it's set up because it is a part of the story present, right? We have this book is structured with before and then kind of immediately after. So we know Lucy is missing right away. So that's the inciting incident, is like what happened to Lucy, right? That's the story question. it's it's everything. It's the reason we're entering into this story at this time is because the police are questioning them about what happened to Lucy. And so we flip back and forth between before and after. And, prologues can take a lot of different formats. Like some of my favorites are the ones where it's like from the victim's perspective and they get murdered by the killer. And then our whole thing is about like who the killer is.
Mhm.
Classic for a reason, right? We never see that character again except when they're a dead body. But this one, like, we're being told quite a bit about what's going to happen in this story. So it's one of those ones where we see it and then we're going to see it again in the climactic scene when we actually figure out what's going to happen. And it's a little risky, to be honest. Like you're giving away kind of a lot here, even though you don't know, like the reader doesn't know how much they're being told about the drama. And I think that it works. It's one of those ones where it's like,
Oh, it
yeah, it
definitely
works. But
works.
if I'd seen this without it being, I mean, I'm not gonna like call anybody out. Like I've tried to do this myself in my own, and it
Mhm.
didn't work because it just gave too much away. Like it was too on the nose with what I was trying to do for the reader. And I think that her point here is about evoking emotion. And I'm curious to hear what you think.
Oh, I think that's what I think evoking emotion and establishing the emotional state specifically of Margot as our as our protagonist,
Yeah.
where she is vulnerable, why she feels very vulnerable, and at the same time there was a moment where later in the book where Lucy kind of calls her out and was like, you're not as weak and malleable as you think you are. And looking back on, the pieces that we see, like, no, she's not, but she feels so there's this push and pull of her external reality versus her internal reality that is set up here too. And to your point, like it's funny, I wouldn't have necessarily called it risky, but I like that you did that. I think that's really interesting. And I think the reason that it does work here is because to me, like the motivations behind everything that happened are so well explained in another way. Like that misdirection is so tight and so strong that you can point people in the direction of what's actually happening without giving everything away because you're not actually giving anything away. I don't
Exactly. But
Maybe
like
we
the
need to start
line.
spoiling stuff because I'm not sure if that
Well,
makes sense
yeah, I mean, we're good.
now.
We're going to totally, but I just think she walked this line so,
Oh,
so well.
definitely.
And
Yeah.
as I was trying to unpack like why this prologue works so well, I think it's about the emotion at its core.
Mhm.
But there's also to your point about the vulnerability, like that's so true. Like the knife is literally pointing at her,
Yeah.
and what a clue, right?
Yeah.
So, okay. Let's read the very first page and then let's get into where the twist happens so that we don't rhapsodize about this book forever. It's a
Yeah.
delight. Everyone who hasn't read it, please read it. Okay, chapter one. We're seated next to each other, shoulders touching, side by side like a prison lineup. I can feel Nicole's hip bone jutting into my side. Sloane can't stop picking at her cuticles, sprinkling dead skin across the floor like salt. We're in our pajamas, cheeks still smeared with last night's mascara, and Nicole looks about 5 years younger with her baby face skin and braided pigtails, barely a teenager. Sloane's dark hair is knotted up in a scrunchie, a single curl jutting out like a corkscrew, and I don't even know what I'm wearing. Some t-shirt I probably picked up off someone's floor and claimed it as my own, armpit stains and everything. Girls, period. I look up at the detective in front of us, hands on his hips. I don't like the way he says that. Girls, like we're children being scolded. Some words should be ours to own, at times vicious yet tender terms of endearment we toss around like glitter that suddenly tastes sour in the mouths of men. Girls is one of them. Just beautiful. So there's no words wasted here, right?
Mhm.
Like I think that this is one of Stacy Willingham's superpowers is like yes, it's a quiet burn book. Like we know something's going on with the detective and we know that there's something happening, but Lucy at this point is just missing.
Hmm.
And I think, it does get gory AF later,
Oh
but
yeah, the slow burn was just like the first half, and then
right.
but it also didn't feel. Sometimes I read clients' manuscripts, and it's like there's everything stored up in the first half, only to unleash a flood in the second half that
I
feels
believe
unbalanced.
you have given me that exact feedback on one of my manuscripts.
Wasn't meaning to call you out here, but just I was thinking of somebody else, as a matter of fact, um, but this did not feel like that. This felt like story building and everything and it wasn't like a torrent unleashed. It was like a piece of origami unfolding. It felt more like, I think, is how I'm thinking about it in this moment. Um,
Yeah,
but you're so right. I mean, she's very economical. No wasted words. Everything is there with a purpose. And
right.
just, I will stop gushing now about it, I swear, after this, but like even in those paragraphs that you read, the side by side like a prison lineup, she's sprinkling dead skin across the floor like salt. I could practically hear the cringe in your voice when you were reading it.
So it's
It's
so just like what an image, right?
yeah,
You're just like, yeah,
right.
you can picture that exactly.
Yep.
And I think that there's some clever stuff done on this first page as well, that even if you didn't read the book jacket copy, which not everyone does, it's kind of a personal choice. Like I have some friends who refuse to read the book jacket copy, Carrie, before they start reading because they don't want anything to be given away. It's usually the same people who don't like to watch movie previews, right? Like you just want to enter the story. And so even if you knew nothing else, we have the girls thing, and they could be in high school at this point, they could be in college, but because we're talking about picked off someone else's floor and claimed as my own, that is college, right? That's not necessarily maybe boarding school or something, but like we have a bit of a
Mm,
they're adults, right? Um, and I think you get that pretty quickly
hmm.
with all of these descriptions. And also these three women sitting close to each other. It's kind of clear to me that they're very close, if not living together in some kind of shared living situation. So I think you get a lot just from this initial thing. And then you also get a big dose of who this protagonist is and who this voice is by the way that she scorns the detective for using the word girls. And yeah, I just think
Well, I
that's
think
really well
it's
done.
really, I love that piece, and as I always love when writers do this, I think of I think it was Listen for the Lie where this came up again too,
Yeah.
where it's taking this sort of deep-seated misogyny and like pointing a big finger at it and being like, "Hey, like look at that!" Like he's sitting there like, "Yes, we might be 19 years old, we might be college, but he's girls." Like he's scolding them like a school
Right.
teacher. And later in the book, she comes back to that and says like, we're totally like they use that to their advantage of like, oh yeah, we're just like ditzy college girls who like,
Right.
our friend is missing. Oh geez, what could we
Whoops,
possibly know
daisies.
about it? Meanwhile, there's all these machinations that are going on behind the scenes. And so that's I appreciated that about like the pointing the finger at it and then like using it to their advantage and saying like, yeah, of course, like these people who think we're just sort of like these innocent college girls who couldn't possibly orchestrate something like this, and look at us. I know we're living next door to the big scary boys, the frat boys, and they're taking advantage,
Right.
which does play into some of this too, right? Like some of what goes wrong is entirely because of the setup here, but they're definitely not as naive as they're perceiving um, they're being taken for at this point.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you just made me think that the power dynamic here is really interesting. Like I look up at the detective, hands on hips, the way that this is all described, this person's not scared. This person is in control. And I think that if I were being interviewed by a detective, I would not be using language like this, right? I'd be like shaking and nervous and nauseous and like, and so the fact that that's not there, it tells us quite a bit about what's going on in this story. And we actually, I clocked on page, um, there's a line in here. I'm not going to spend the time to find it, but she's like, "Oh, here it is. On page 7, no, I lie, the first of many." That's the first time we know that she's lying to the detective and that the power struggle is truly they have the power and the detective does not, and that they're messing with him.
Yeah.
And I just thought that, I mean, but she waits a minute, right? That's not on the first page. That's on like page
It's not
3.
on the first page. But
Yeah.
she still does give it to us pretty early. So
Yeah.
it's cluing us in that like, there is more to what's going on. There's more than meets the eye to what's
Yeah.
happening here, which we know again because we know the kind of book we're reading, but it's starting to shape our perceptions and our expectations at that point
Totally.
too.
Totally. Okay, so what do you think the story question is? So the last line of the first chapter is we learn that Lucy is being questioned for the murder of Levi Butler. So we do know that there is a murder. We don't know when it happened or what happened. We learn later on what that looks like. So what I said earlier about there being not a body on the first page, there kind of is a body on the first page. But it's not an immediate body. We're not stumbling over the body. This crime has already happened. And so,
So this isn't probably a very elegant way of saying it, and I'm sure you'll come up with you have a better way of saying it. But I think, we had mentioned when we were talking about the book jacket copy, like the question is like, where is Lucy?
yeah,
She's missing. What happened to her? There's also this, what did she, because we're being pointed with a big neon arrow in her direction, what did she do to Levi? Because we're expecting that, did she murder him? Did she do something to him? We're not really sure. And she has a very ambiguous relationship with him because we're
yes,
set up to believe, and we're going to start spoiling things now, so warning, warning, that they're growing closer and closer and even potentially have some kind of romantic relationship going on. And
right.
yet he ends up dead, and we're being pointed to Lucy as the potential suspect. But at the same time, she knows how Margot feels about him. So my question, the first time I read this through, and I was really wondering, I'm like, so what did like I really thought for the longest time what was going on was here was that Lucy had put in motion some sort of plan to kill Levi or to take care of Levi in some way, and she was moving all of these puzzle pieces around, and somehow like things were going to happen to Levi that were not, like, she didn't directly hold the knife or kill him. However, we know how he ends up dying, but
Yeah.
she didn't actually kill him. But she set all these events and motions and things in place so that like it's all going to come together in this killing. Spoiler alert: that's not what happens.
Yeah, but I think that the twist set up here with like you said, big neon sign pointing to Lucy killed Levi Butler, right? That's the operating assumption that we have. And so I thought that was really interesting from a twist setup because immediately as thriller readers, we're like, well, obviously Lucy didn't kill Levi Butler, right? Because we're being led to believe this so early on. And so then we're looking for every other like possibility out there. And my working assumption as I read through this the first time was that Margot had killed him. And we
Mm.
get to a point like when we learn actually what happened, which is more or less like the climactic scene, right? Where we learn what actually happened. Um, that, Margot is being led to believe that she did and can't remember because she's like blacked out drunk, right? And so she questions it. And so then it becomes another twist because we're meant to think that Margot had very good reason to kill him because she thinks, spoiler alert, that Levi was responsible for her best friend from high school's death. And that sets up yet another twist because we are being led to believe through her mind that Levi did it, where in actuality, she did it. And so everything is not quite what it seems. And I think that it's like hopscotching, right? Like we're meant to think that Lucy killed Levi. She didn't. Nicole actually was the one who killed Levi, thinking that he was somebody else. And all of these assumptions, it's all based on assumptions. And I just want to point out that, even though we're led to believe that Lucy killed him here, and so we think not, we're led to assume that Margot is the one behind Levi's murder, and we think that that's what we're like tracking toward, and it's not, and it becomes twisty because we learn that it's not actually what happened.
Because it's so funny. It's two different perspectives on like I knew that that Lucy didn't kill Levi, right? Like that's obvious. But when she went missing, so like I should clarify, like what I thought was she's going to be the obvious choice. So somebody else, one of the other girls did it, and Lucy is going to like now take the fall for it to a certain extent. She's gonna
Oh,
like clear out of town, go missing, disappear. They'll never be able to actually find enough evidence to pin it on her. But also she is the misdirection. She's the big misdirection here.
yeah.
That like the cops are all going to think it's her, and so somebody else gets away with it. I actually never really felt like Margot did it or felt like she did it. It was, I guess I was a little bit too, maybe it's because of the first person narration. And there were definitely times where, Margot will share information that makes you go, oh, we shouldn't necessarily trust her perceptions of everything.
Right.
But like she was saying something about how when, what was it? It was after the party on the island and Levi has died and she's woken up, she doesn't remember, but she says something like, I remember when like the night Eliza died, um, like I didn't feel this way, and that she's blames herself for Eliza's death. I don't think we can
Right.
quite say that Margot murdered Eliza. It was just like it was a kind of an accidental thing,
It
but of
was an
course she's
accidental,
carrying
but
guilt. Of
yeah.
course she's carrying
Yeah.
guilt for it. Like it totally makes sense. Um, she's like, I felt a way that morning when I woke up. I don't feel that way this morning, so I feel like I didn't do it. And I guess for whatever reason, I was trusting her in that moment. I'm like, yeah, you didn't do it. I know you didn't do it. Like somebody else did it. Maybe it was Lucy. I'm not really sure that it was Lucy. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. It was
Yeah.
Nicole, I think, as we've said. So, um, yeah.
Yeah. There's just every single chance that Stacy Willingham had to misdirect, I think she took it, and I think that it works really well. But there's also so much thought that went into, I assume, what the reader is going to be thinking as they read through this, which is why this book felt so twisty to me, which is why we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about it. Um, it was one of these ones that I read when I had like a week to kind of veg on the couch, and I like blew through it in an afternoon. And,
Yeah.
didn't really know what to expect. I wasn't expecting like nostalgia from this. Not that I didn't murder anybody in college, but like, just the whole thing about the parties and like the close female friendships and how that can just go so wildly wrong. It was just such a ride from start to finish.
Mhm.
And part of that, I think, is again this intimacy that we feel with these four girls because so much of it is wrapped up in like how Margot feels about Lucy and how she's so close to Eliza and it feels like Eliza's being replaced. And of course, that's one of the major twists is that they're half sisters. And this is why she feels this. But we don't learn that until the very, very end. That's part of like the final twist whole thing. And yeah, it just works really, really well. Like all the misassumptions work really well.
Yeah, I mean, think about like it's Nicole thinking that like so what happens is really her boyfriend Trevor rapes her on Halloween, right?
Yes.
And Levi walks in and doesn't say anything. So all the misdirection that like all the things that Margot has been seeing, like these weird glances and the way that Levi and Nicole are acting strangely around each other, Margot was totally predisposed to think that Levi's a creep and,
Right.
did this thing to her, took her best friend, because he did basically take her best friend. So she's thinking, oh, of course he hurt Nicole, and Nicole is, acting really weird around him now, and
Right.
is like a shell of her former self. But no, all of that was just really because Eli didn't help her when he saw this happening to her, which is a really shitty thing to do. Don't get me wrong. Like he should
Of
have helped
course.
her.
Yeah.
But what the real villain in that moment is Trevor. And when Nicole murders Levi, she thinks she's murdering Trevor because she wasn't there earlier in the night when they switched shirts, which is the
Right.
whole frat dynamic that had been set up of Trevor's the president of the frat and Levi is the pledge. And so even though supposedly I love when she was like, oh yeah, like that's all over because like they're now initiated, and I'm like, I was not in a sorority, I never would have been. That would like kind of my nightmare. But my understanding of that dynamic is like even if you're a member now, you're still like the low guys on the totem pole. If the
There's still
president
a
tells you to
power
do
dynamic.
something,
Yeah.
yeah, you're gonna do it. So she thought she was, killing her attacker, and then she finds out, oh God, I killed I killed Levi. But of course, no one would ever expect Nicole because she's the nice one, right?
She is the
We were
nice one.
told right on the back cover, she's the nice one.
Exactly. Exactly. Misdirection. It's
Yep.
amazing. But just think about that logic of like we're led to
Mhm.
believe all these things and we don't question it because it makes sense. And it started with the book jacket copy. It was
Yeah.
great.
And all of those, that's where I feel like there was like the origami nature of this for me is all of
Yeah.
that misdirection all built solid logic from the start. I mean, you think about, okay, Lucy, another twist, about 75-ish% mark is where we really start to find out, or maybe a little earlier than that. But all of Lucy's lies or misdirections start to unravel, and we find out that Lucy was never even a student at the college. So that whole year, freshman year, where she was in the dorm all the time and everyone just assumed that she went there, she didn't. She just glommed onto Sloane and Nicole the first day and kind of never left. And she did it by stealing Nicole's key card so she could get in and out of the dorm. So then there's a running thing throughout the book of how Nicole, we can't lock the doors of the house because Nicole loses her keys. Well,
Right.
Nicole never loses her keys. It's the Lucy stole them. And that was established right from the start, but it was not, it was just, oh, like, we can't lock the doors because Nicole loses her keys. And Nicole's is just like, because she's nice, she's like, whatever, like, I guess. But then we find out Sloane's like, yeah, she never lost her keys and she knew it, but they just never said anything. So, like, little pieces like that, where I was now, and I was going back and reading it the second time, and you see how the seeds are planted, and it just makes
Yes.
you wonder how many drafts along the way. It's like, well, now I have my story. As you're Stacy Willingham or any writer, you have your fundamental story in place, and you know what needs to unfold. How do you take those pieces and then go back and seed them along the way? What are the little things that you can manipulate to work in your favor, like something as innocuous as keys? And, how am I going to make that happen? Okay, yep, I'm going to set this up from the beginning here. Nicole always loses her keys.
Right. Right. Yeah. So well said. I completely agree. So let's talk about where the twist landed and how this all kind of came out. So, and again, like economical writing, there are no chapters in here that don't give us something, right? There's nothing that is wasted space. Every single new nugget of information ultimately feeds into the whole of our understanding about what happened. And there's some good misdirection in there too. So, um, I don't know. The 50% twist, for example, is page 183 out of all of this. On page 180, we learn about the crawl space, which is key for the very ending because it ends up being where they ultimately hide Lucy's body. Um, Page 182, we learn that they are desperate to belong, like the frat guys are desperate to belong and will do anything for each other in that way. And then page 183, we learn one little push and you're trapped. And there was a line in there that just like jumped out at me. Let me see if I can find it and read just a touch about that. Aha. Yeah. So this is about the crawl space. So they leave the door to get in, cracked open, and this is the line. Leave it cracked open when they're in there, but accidents happen. One little push and you're trapped. And so we can already picture like, okay, someone's going to die in this thing. But again, we don't know who, and we don't know. We think maybe this is how Levi died. Like that's where my brain went was like, okay, well, we know Levi Butler dies eventually, so maybe this is part of it. But I
Hmm.
just thought that that was it. Like learning about the crawl space was a very pivotal moment for the rest of the story
Hmm.
because we know now that the frat house has been like infiltrating their house and is like creepily hanging out underneath, and you can't go back from that, right? It's not like a true turn where it really has anything to do with what happened to Levi and what happened to Lucy, although in the end, of course, it does. But to Margot, learning this information just means that they're in danger. That was kind of what I took away from it was there's this like overarching threat that is always present and they're not alone when they think they're alone.
Yeah, I mean, it's been sort of lying out there that, it's really easy that, the frat guys are their landlords. So there's that issue. Then there's just the shed in the back, which is how everyone comes and goes. They
Yeah.
don't lock the doors because, supposedly Nicole is losing her keys all the time. So there's just sort of free and easy access, but there really shouldn't be. And, Margot always kind of feels that edge, but it really is, I think, at that moment when she finds out that, like, oh yeah, this is why my room is always creepily cold,
So
even when
cold
it
because
shouldn't be.
drafty. Yeah.
And she's hearing noises coming up from underneath, which, as someone who lives in New England with full-fledged basements, like, noises coming from the basement when there shouldn't be noises from the
Not
basement is
good.
not a fun thing to live with. So
No, no.
I felt in that moment like, oh yeah, that's not good. That's not good. So yeah, things really kind of go start to maybe that's really the moment, like you said, it was a turning point. You could feel it in the book, but really when everything starts to formally feel off kilter to
Yes, because there's
Margot.
like this whole like underground thing going on that you don't really understand. But the line that I think is the true midpoint is
Mm,
on page 183. 50% exactly. Thank you, Stacy Willingham. And it's Margot and Lucy talking. They're on the roof and they're discussing about what happened with Eliza. And, you know, Margot says, I wish it was him. It should have been him,
Mm,
talking about Levi dying instead of Eliza dying. And she's referencing an earlier conversation, but Lucy is asking her, like, did you really mean it? And Margot says, of course I meant it. And that ultimately is what sets us up to that was the moment where I thought, oh, okay, so Lucy did kill Levi because Margot wanted it that way.
mm,
And so I, from that moment until we learn what actually happens to Levi, was like 100% Lucy took him out because she loves Margot and she wanted to do what Margot wanted. And so, in terms of establishing a new villain, it's an interesting thing, right? Because we think Lucy did it, and then we kind of were like, no, she couldn't possibly, because that's what we're meant to think. And then the 50% mark, my brain immediately was like, oh, okay, that's actually what happened. And here's the reason why. And it felt really
yeah.
good. And then it became even twistier when we learned that it didn't. Um, Okay. And then from there, kind of, we just have this like series of increasing more information that makes Lucy look like a shady character. So we have this friend who went to Lucy's high school. We learn about Lucy's dad on page 191. So this is maybe like 10 pages later. And we don't know yet that Lucy's dad and Eliza's dad are the one and the same person, but we know that her dad, abandoned
Wasn't
them
around, yeah.
when wasn't around. And then we get this whole trip back home for Christmas or Thanksgiving. I can't remember exactly.
Just Christmas, yeah.
Yeah. And we find this letter in Eliza's room, and we find out that Lucy came to visit Levi, and it just starts escalating. Like the tension, just like this is when I was like ripping through the pages, being like, what's gonna happen? And then, of course, the party where we find out what actually happened to Levi. And we find out he's dead on page 288. And just for reference, that's around 78%. So that was kind of the start of the climactic scene. And then we get into everything else.
Mm.
Um, and I'm curious to hear what you thought the actual climactic moment was, like the emotional aha moment as well. I have my own theory, which I can talk about if you're still thinking, but
Yeah, go, you talk about it while I look at my notes again. When will I
okay.
learn to just mark this stuff? Because you're always going to ask me this question.
I
Next
do. I
deep
do.
dive.
I love percentages. Okay, so page 298 is 85, or no, sorry, page 313 is 85%. And that's when we learn that Margot has been wrong. Um, and let me just go back to that page and
Is
see
that the
what
part? Is that
actually.
where we find out she went to the party that night? Because my
Um,
percentages, I think, are a little different, probably because I was on my
you
Kindle.
were on your Kindle,
Yeah.
yes. So I'm just looking back. So there's a line at the end of page 313, which is 85%.
Okay.
Where we're in Margot's voice, and she says, I'll just read this last little bit. Blah, blah, blah. I'm beginning to grasp the truth. The answers coming to me one by one, like the steady drip of a faucet, filling me up with a sense of sick understanding. All the things I thought I knew were suddenly different, warped, like staring at my own reflection in the water and barely recognizing the face that stares back. I've been wrong about Eliza, about Lucy, about Levi, about everything. And so that's kind of the climactic turn. And then we go
Mm.
in and we learn immediately that the climactic realization is that Lucy's dad and Eliza's dad are one and the same,
Okay.
which changes the motivation about everything. Um, and so the emotional aha moment, I think, happens much later. That's when Margot realizes that she has the power and she's not a pushover. And that's when they decide to like bury Lucy's body, and protect Nicole. Like she has this moment where she can turn Nicole in, or she can take a stand and do the evil thing, and this is a step into like, if not like amoral, definitely gray morality. Um,
Yeah, I mean, technically, she's not the one who stabs Lucy. There is that.
no,
But yeah, there is the okay, you now are faced with the choice of what are you going to do? And she
yeah,
is the person who, and that is probably, I guess, yeah, so that is the moment, right? Because that's when she steps into, like, Lucy is dead. There's nothing to do about that. Now you have to choose, are you going to turn them in or are you going to be part of a cover up, I guess? And she takes
right,
charge, doesn't she? I mean, she's the one who like said, okay, like here's what we're going to do.
exactly.
Yeah. wrapping around
exactly.
in the body bags and
Well, it's like mutually assured destruction, right? Because, Lucy, well, sorry, Margot is still kind of on the hook for what happened to Eliza, right? Like Levi was there, he saw Eliza fall, he saw that Margot didn't really do anything to stop it. Lucy also watched the whole thing. And so Levi and Lucy are both dead, and so that secret for Margot is safe, right?
Mhm,
But she's still living with it, and they can stop the investigation into what happened if they just let Lucy take the fall for it.
mhm.
And then, of course, the Levi question is Nicole stabbed Levi, and the Lucy question is that Sloane stabbed Lucy to get her back for what she did to Nicole by setting the whole thing up and setting everything in motion. And so, is it so much of a morally amoral choice to just let this person who's already dead take the fall for all this stuff and go on with your life? Like, I think that that question is like so interesting, and it's not like
Mhm.
someone taking a stand and being like, I'm going to be a good person, because like obviously the right answer is to call the cops and tell them what actually happened and let justice prevail, but like justice has already sort of prevailed vigilante wise, you know.
Yeah, I mean, and Sloane and Nicole have and Margot now too have a fair reason, and it sounds like I'm defending murder, and I'm not, I
Yeah,
swear. But they're in their minds, all of this was put into motion, but like they wouldn't be like living next door to and involved with the frat if Lucy hadn't wanted to live in that house and
right.
pushed Nicole towards hooking up with Trevor and getting into a relationship with him, and that which then put all of this stuff in motion, right? So it's Lucy's fault in their minds.
Yeah,
And Nicole was pushed to do what she did because of all the stuff that Lucy set in motion. So now they're just like closing that loop.
they're
As
closing
terrible
the
as that
loop.
sounds,
Yeah.
but
And like we wrap up at, literally 98%, there's a line about where they decide, okay, we're going to do it. We're going to frame Lucy for everyone, for Eliza, for Levi, for, and Lucy dying, nobody will ever really know because they just think she's missing and her body's not going to be found because of these reasons. And then the story ends.
I
And
say that was the one thing where I was like, I don't know if that body's gonna go unnoticed
oh
forever.
no, I had the same thoughts. I'm like, they're 100% going to find it and figure out what
Which
happened.
doesn't
But
matter for the course of the
yeah,
like it's fine. It's fine. It doesn't ruin anything about the book, but I definitely had that like I know you put her in the bags and they're supposed to keep bodies fresh and whatever, but like it's South Carolina, man. Like she's under a
real warm,
house. Like that's
real
gonna
warm. Yeah.
ugh. um but
Yeah. But in terms of like the proper twists, it's like the climactic twist is learning that Lucy's dad is Eliza's dad and what actually
mm,
happened with Eliza, right? Like that's a big reveal. That's
yes.
very twisty because we think that Levi did it this whole time. And then kind of the 98, like there's a series in there, but the
There's
big
quite a
one
series.
is that Nicole killed Levi, thinking it was Trevor, and then Sloane kills Lucy, which we just don't even see coming. That was another like gasp out loud. My husband
Yeah.
was like, "What are you reading?" Um, and it just keeps going, and then we learn that this entire like after with the detective is them just messing with the detective and getting away with a crime, and it just yeah,
It
it's
felt
almost like
like
a
it.
little heisty, you know?
Yeah, well, it felt like I was just looking back at my notes too, and it feels like from about 75%, the things that started to be revealed there, which again, this is, might not be exactly 75% because it was for me,
Yeah,
is that's when Levi is found. And then from there, like every chapter has a twist, it feels like that is revealed. And like that just shows you that's where I think like that unraveling, that origami piece comes to is just like everything you think, okay, well now we know what's happening. It's like, nope, no, you actually don't. You're still harboring this misperception or this
right.
misunderstanding, and I'm going to correct it now. Which is just, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like to do that for 25% of a book, it's like, good God.
Yeah.
And the layers, I just imagine that, again, starting with a foundation, but then going back and saying like, oh, here's another thing that I can do that's going to allow me to add this twist back in or this twist in at this point, like, and just again, you think we're done. Nope, we're not done here.
Yep.
And one last thing too that I will say, it was I think the second to last chapter, going back to what I was saying at the very beginning, where the detective is standing there with his hands on his hips and saying "girls," and it's not the very last line in the book. I think it's the second to last chapter, the last lines. They'll they'll just think we're naive, I say, walking over to her, meaning I think Nicole now, and rubbing her shoulders, that our only crime is being too innocent to see her for who she really is. That we're just girls, Sloane adds, her eyes distant and detached. Just a couple of harmless little girls. Good job.
It's so good.
Nice.
Harmless Little Girls would have been a
Harmless
really
little
good title
girls.
for this, but yeah. Anyway, just brilliantly done.
Yeah.
Brilliantly done, Stacy Willingham.
Thank you,
Adored
Stacey
it.
Willingham.
Thank you. Can't wait to read your next one. And that wraps us up for a deep dive for Shadows and Secrets. So thank you for watching, everybody. If you're watching on the interwebs, we appreciate you. And we will see you next time. And if you want more
Yes.
information, shadowsandsecrets.com.
Shadowsandsecrets.com. And yeah, thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time.